deficit until the most recent 2016 Budget Act. Here in Maryland, according to the Federal Reserve of Richmond, economic reports on Maryland was mixed. In recent months, there has been a slight improvement in housing indicators among households. There has been a slight employment decline. On a year-to-year basis, total employment in Maryland has only expanded by 1.4%. Maryland's unemployment rate has fallen by 0.1%. However, payroll employment in Cumberland MSA has dropped 2.4%, and in Hagerstown MSA, employment levels remained unchanged. Now we'll turn it to our questioners. Ms. Hagerstown.
I'd like to address this question to Mr. Vogt. What is the best way to reduce the size of the federal deficit?
First area, we've got to reduce the size of government and all of the wasted areas and inside the government. It's up on every level. It happens at the federal level, it happens at state levels. All these agencies have this little game they play at the end of every fiscal year called spend it or you lose it. Instead of being fiscally responsible, they waste billions of dollars every year. And on top of that, the biggest area as far as exponential is we've got to stop putting hundreds of billions of dollars in other countries that don't care what's going to happen to us. Point in case, $150 billion that went to Iran in that horrible deal.
Ms. Brigham.
This question is from Mrs. Hooper. The official unemployment rate is 5%, but we know that over 90 million working-age citizens are out of work. They are out of the workforce. What are some specific actions you would take to fix this problem, especially in our district?
Well, I've already actually taken some actions to help this problem. I have found there's a small company in Oakland, out in Garrett County, and I discovered what it is they did because they were the first hub zone business out there. A hub zone business is a historically underutilized business area. I linked them up with a larger company that I knew here in the Washington metropolitan area that needed exactly that sort of talent, and they now have a subcontract working with that larger company. I've also arranged for some interviews in Hagerstown for 70 people that were recently laid off from the Volvo plant there with a company that I also knew here in Montgomery County that was looking for people with exactly those sorts of records. And I know the interviews have happened. I honestly don't know whether any particular jobs have resulted from that, but I do know some action was taken. So I'm already trying to solve the job problems in our district, and I will do more every day when I'm in office.
Ms. Bauer.
Thank you. This is a twofold question to Mr. Mason. Can you make a simple, persuasive case why capitalism is preferable to socialism? And how do we promote this understanding in the general public, especially younger voters?
You say socialism? Capitalism and
Yes.
socialism.
Capitalism is preferable to socialism.
Well, capitalism empowers the individual. It creates competition and allows the individual to succeed. And it gets government out of the way, allows quality to rise and costs to plummet. Or socialism, basically communism, it's one and the same. It empowers the government to oppress the people, it allows the government to rise, and it allows the people to fall. And it makes you subservient to the very government that's supposed to serve you. So capitalism and socialism, how do you get our young people to understand it? Get rid of a socialistic school system. Public school system is inherently socialistic. You've got to create competition within the school system. It breaks the back of the Democrats overnight. The school system's a money laundering system for them. They give taxpayers' money into the school system, they launder it into the union and turn it back to Democratic dues, and then they teach and brainwash our kids into socialism. Look at all the schools. What are we always ripe about it? Ever since the federal government or the federal Department of Education got involved in the early 20th century, Iowa had the best rated school system. Since they got involved in the early 20th century, Iowa's bell curve went from always growing to declining, and it's never recovered. get the government out of the school system. If you allow competition in the school system, that's inherently capitalism. You'll teach capitalism just by changing the entire system, and it'll change the minds of our children for generations to come. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Cave.
I'm always going to follow this guy. This question is for Mr. Howard. Our trade policy stinks. We're getting hosed. The most politically correct way I can put it. Whether it's with the Europeans or in Asia, they sell into us, we can't sell anything into them. We're getting clobbered, the jobs and factories are gone. What are you going to do about it?
First of all, I think for many years, for decades, Jerry, conservatives have said almost across the board that free trade is better than restricted trade, and I don't disagree with that. However, the world is changing, and indeed there are some trade policies that have been enacted and that are being talked about being enacted, like the TPP and some others, that are candidly, in my opinion, not in the best interests of the American worker.
Excuse me for interrupting you, but I do not see these as free trade. I see it as our jobs going out and their money coming in, so I'm sorry.
No, that's okay.
You voting?
He has in the past.
He's the candidate. Ask the question. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Sir.
Ms. Angsted.
Question for Mr. Figger. In 1996, Republicans and President Clinton worked together to enact significant welfare reform that required people to work, to prepare for work, or at least to be looking for work in order to need to receive benefits. And this has been quietly removed by President Obama. So he's reversed the workfare reform. What is your plan to reduce this kind of dependency if you are elected?
We need to bring a lot of the jobs that are going to China back to Maryland. We need to make Maryland as job-friendly as Virginia and more job-friendly than China. Apple Computer, the largest American company, I'm a stockholder, has 500,000 jobs in China and 50,000 in the United States. We need to give incentive to these corporations to bring the hundreds of billions of dollars of funds that they have overseas back home. Our manufacturing plants in Cumberland and Hagerstown, they're gone. I had the Republican nomination for this seat in 1984. Many of the companies that were in the 6th District then are no longer in the 6th District. We're looking for casinos and jails to provide jobs. We need the free enterprise system. I've never worked for the government. I've always had a small business. I've made my way and hired lots of attorneys that are working in Montgomery County and other professionals. We need to keep the taxes down, cut the regulations, make ourselves more like Virginia, and bring those jobs overseas, bring the money back home. JOBS is my favorite four-letter word. I'm the only candidate up here that has the word jobs on his signs because it's going to be my watchword on the Hill.
Thank you very much. Ms. Krieger.
Mr. Mason, so it's your turn. What are your plans to bring viable job opportunities to our district?
It's very easy. As a federal representative, you don't try to, I disagree with Baker. This is part of the problem. I'm not going to try to bring jobs. I'm going to allow capitalism to work. I'm going to allow the people of Maryland to do for themselves. I'm just going to get the government out of the way by reducing regulation, reducing the agencies that apply the regulations like the EPA into a state like this that make it where you can't even frack. In Western Maryland, that we would have a booming economy out there if they were allowed to frack. But the EPA shuts that down. So get the government out of the way, allow the people to do for themselves, and quit trying to bring something back, which is why we're 20 trillion in debt. And it's going to keep skyrocketing if we go up there like hogs and keep sucking at the teeth of government and trying to bring something back that was never intended by our founding fathers. But you have to do. If you don't have, it's because you don't want. If you have, it's because you want. So do for yourselves and quit looking for government to do it for you.
Thank you, Mr. Mason. Ms. Bauer.
Thank you. This is a long one, and I'm going to address it to Mr. Baker. Mining has been a significant part of Maryland's economy, particularly in the western counties. In 2015, some 356 mines were active. According to the 2012 U.S. Economic Census, 54 firms operate mines in the state. Campaigning in Ohio recently, Hillary Clinton said she wants to move away from using coal as an energy source, even if it means eliminating jobs in the process. We're going to put a lot of coal miners and coal companies out of business. Do you agree with Mrs. Clinton?
You couldn't even come close to agreeing with her on many things. But I just often look back at all of the quality and all of the good families up in Allegheny, Garrett County, even West Virginia, where a lot of their, many coal mines are. And those good old, I guess Hillary Clinton calls them, they're not good quality ways of providing energy to America, but those good old-fashioned jobs were good enough to raise a family, help their kids go to college, keep them warm in the winter, dry in the summer through their housing. So I certainly support the mining industry, and I would certainly support bringing those mining jobs back to western Maryland and other parts of the state of Maryland. Thank you.
Okay.
This question is also to Mr. Baker. Our culture has demonized blue-collar work. I can't tell you how many clients I've talked to in the trades. They can't get carpenters, they can't get bricklayers, they can't get HVAC, they can't get auto mechanics. How do we change the culture so that the kids will want to go into this and get the elites to stop demonizing blue-collar work, which are good-paying jobs that you well know?
Well, as I said earlier, right now I could get up here, leave, get on a plane, go anywhere in the United States, and I could be employed within 24 hours. I have skills. I grew up with skills. My dad, he was a carpenter, painter, and so forth. And when I went to college, all I wanted to do was be an industrial arts school teacher. And it's very, very frustrating when I hear people say the Mexicans are here, the illegals are here, they're doing the jobs that the Americans won't do. I firsthand see it. They've eliminated the industrial arts programs in our public school system, the related arts programs, good programs that train kids for trades. And kids do want to work. Kids do want to earn a living. They do want to have skills. You look at the heroin epidemic. Many of the people that are out there doing heroin, overdosing, it's because they have nothing to fall back on. They're working at McDonald's, they're working in a fast food restaurant, grocery store, and they feel like they can't advance. Kids do want to work. I'm around kids. I've been around kids for 35 years in the public school system. And I am an advocate of public schools. How many of you out there have had that good old-fashioned public education? Let me see if I can show of hands. Okay, so I do support public education, but it does need to be improved. Get the trades back in the schools, start training the kids for something they'd be successful at, give them more opportunities. That's what I advocate for. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Hanson.
I'd like to address a question to Dr. Chen. According to John Delaney, the country needs to develop a national energy policy focused on two goals: becoming a global leader in domestic energy production and also alternative energy forms, and also properly responding to climate change. Now, I realize that's two questions. What is your opinion on this?
Okay, this is both positions. Okay. I stand for multiple energy resources, which include renewable, coal, gas, oil, and alternative fuels. I know that people are concerned about the climate change, concerned CO2, the carbon dioxide. As I said, I'm biochemistry, and I know this knowledge. For that one, people don't worry about such kind of things. You know why? Because now we have a new technology. With a new technology, CO2 can convert it into methanol. They already have this. People now and scientists study it and have very good progress. So this is shouldn't have what about that kind of stuff. So I don't think that they will, American have this kind of issue. I support the have coal mine. Thank you.
Ms. Krieger.
This question is for Mr. Baker. Could you answer a question that Mr. Rowe answered? What is the best way to reduce the size of the federal deficit?
I think the way we reduce the federal deficit, first off, you have to balance the budget. you know, that we've racked up, 20 trillion, I believe it is, of the national debt. Now, the deficit is what each year, how much more you're adding to it. We need to stop adding to it by balancing the budget each year. Once you balance the budget, you then bring jobs back, like a couple of different people and me have talked about up here today. You bring jobs back, which will help us kill the welfare state, get people back to work, supporting themselves, not looking for the government to help support them. That cuts down on government spending on our biggest thing, our entitlements. And last but not least, we've got to make our allies spend more on our joint defense, and America not being the world's policeman. If we do that, we can get our fiscal house in order over the next 25 years or so. And we'll have them all.
Thanks, Pam. Ms. Bauer?
Thank you. This is a question for Frank Howard. Would you support a shutdown of the federal government or mandatory sequester cuts? Mr. Page. To the federal budget, knowing that the sequester in 2013 is believed to have resulted in a loss of $2.1 billion in lost wages to Maryland.
The sequester is a budgeting and financial trick, and Congress needs to get back to regular order. In fact, the 1974 Budget Act, Sharon, served our country well, but it's no longer working and it's broken. We not only need to get back to regular order, which means setting budgets, passing appropriations bills, and then Congress conducting oversight, but we need a new, fixed, improved Budget Act so that Congress can get back to doing its job. Once we get back to regular order and Congress is doing its job again and doing those three things, setting budgets, passing appropriations bills that the President signs, and then conducting oversight, then and only then will we see an end to these silly machinations such as the sequester, the fiscal cliff, these huge omnibus bills that just take the previous levels of spending and mark them up 2 or 3 or 4%. And that is what I was referring to in my opening comments about Congress not doing its job. So would I support a shutdown of the federal government? I think last time that was actually President Obama who was the one who actually pulled the trigger and shut the government down. The press blamed it on the Republicans. I would support us getting back to regular order and getting Congress doing its job again for the people, doing the people's business.
Thank you, Barrett. Mr. King.
This question is for you, Chris. If I understand you correctly, and the way you put things, that would be difficult even for me, that you want to defund the great deal of the federal government, which would pretty much be compelling the constituents that are going to vote for you to commit a well-deserved economic suicide.
That's right. When I was at the Defense Intelligence Agency, I went around, I was very unpopular, because I told the people there that if we're going to save this country, many of us are going to have to lose our jobs. It's logical. You can't keep creating government jobs. They take a lot of money. They add a lot to the debt. You have to reduce the debt, and the only way you're going to reduce the debt is reduce government. The only way you're going to reduce government is by reducing the government that's taking the money. We have to reduce it. We have to act like conservatives. It doesn't matter if we think we are or not going to receive votes, because you will. I talked to many people. I said I wanted to fund the IRS. They said I have family working in the IRS. And I said, you know what? If we don't do it now, there won't be a government to have any jobs left for your family to have. And they said, you know what? That's a good point. Maybe we need to reduce some in order that we can save a little, because now if we keep going, there won't be any for anybody in the future. We have to reduce. It doesn't matter what we think or don't think. It's going to hurt somebody's pocketbook. It's just like we bring in all these up. I want to reduce government. I want to be conservative, but I want to go up to Capitol Hill and bring every single thing I can back to your district. Well, how's that being conservative? What's that going to do for you? It's just going to implode the general economy. Every other congressman is doing that. That's what we talk about, pork, right? And putting things into amendments and things like that, all these amendments, pork amendments. We have to stop that. We have to be conservative. That means people are going to have to lose their job. I lost my job. I lost my job under the sequestration. I went out the door saying, see, I told you, we've got to lose our jobs, and I'm not complaining. I lost mine.
Thank you very much. I have a question for the panel. Which of the three is a greater threat to U.S. security? terrorism, climate change, or internet security? We'll start with you. Go.
Terrorism.
Internet security is rising in importance. Palo Alto Networks would admit to that, because it's happening in our commercial areas, it's happening in the government, and I think that's the way for the future. We have to be very alert for cybersecurity.
Yeah, terrorism.
I think internet security is in fact a part of terrorism, and so I would lump them both together.
Yeah, I do think terrorism is the bigger problem, but I think Ami's right that they are linked.
Mr. Chen.
Yeah, the terrorism. Yeah, I think both of them is right, that the cybersecurity is important also. Thank you.
Terrorism.
This is going to lead to our fourth topic tonight, which is national security and defense. The world seems inflamed, but according to Foreign Policy magazine, the 10 most important foreign policy issues are Syria and Iraq, Turkey, South Sudan, Afghanistan, Yemen, Burundi, South China Sea, North Korea, Russia, and Islamic State. Now turn to our panel for questions. Ms. Langston.
I'd like to address this question to Mrs. Hober. After World War II, the North American Treaty Organization was created to balance the threat of Soviet communist aggression. Recently, Donald Trump questioned the continued viability of NATO. What's your opinion of that?
I think NATO is absolutely essential for our security. I think NATO is being threatened today by Russia. I believe that Russia is bombing Syria intentionally to create the flow of refugees into Europe in order to destabilize NATO. Russia is clearly wanting to expand into Eastern Europe. Their foray into the Ukraine was only one piece of what I think they see as a much larger chess game. And I think their effort to destabilize NATO through the use of the refugees is so far being reasonably successful, and I think we need to look at it in that broader context.
Ms. Greer.
Okay, Casey took my question. So, Mr. Pacer, in regard to what you think is the greatest threat to our national security, what would you do to meet this challenge?
I think in the long run, our greatest threat still is Russia. You can say what you want about the terrorists, but they don't have the real muscle behind them that a Putin or the next strongman that rises in Russia does. We've got to get NATO to stand shoulder to shoulder with us. That's you all just said a minute ago. Its main purpose was to deter Soviet aggression. It worked. I mean, back in the 50s, there's no doubt. If Stalin could have took it, he'd have taken it. The only reason he didn't go any further is he knows he'd get pushed back if he tried. We've got to get the European allies to stand up, to pony up more of their money, put more of their men in uniform. They need to put more tanks in the field, more planes in the sky, less of it being America, and to be true allies.
Ms. Bauer.
Thank you. This is a question for delegate vote, and it's another long one. The U.S. Naval Force is currently made up of 273 ships, which is the smallest number since the fleet stood at 245 in 1916. While fleet size has fluctuated significantly throughout history, today's Navy is only slightly smaller than it was in 2006. But it is almost half the size of the Navy when President Reagan's term ended in January 1989. China and Russia keep expanding their own naval capabilities. And with China's increasingly aggressive posture in the South China Sea, should the size of the Navy be expanded?
The bigger concern that we have with our Navy, and in fact all our armed forces, is not so much the size of what we have, because we have been better at everything in our armed forces than the rest of the world for decades. The bigger problem is how old our ships are, how old our planes are, our nuclear submarines. They're all disintegrating. They haven't been replaced. We're using 2-3 generations old of equipment that we've got to make sure we've got new, up-to-date, meeting the newest, latest technologies so that the men and women we're putting in harm's way have the tools to be able to fight the fight. And we know from record across the last 60 years is they will win as long as we give them the tools to be able to do that. And that's where we've got to focus our first priority, is giving them the newer equipment to do that.
Thank you, Mr. Bennett. Mr. King.
This is a follow-up from Mr. Painter. One of the presidential debates, the scariest thing I think I've ever heard in my lifetime was some saber rattling by the candidates talking about the situation in Syria, Turkey, and the Ukraine, and and actually talking about shooting down Russian jets. This is a country that has thousands of nuclear bombs. Are you willing to have a shooting conflict, conventional, to escalate the nuclear over the Ukraine or Syria with the Russians?
Over Syria, no. I mean, Syria exists, it's a line drawn on the map by the French and the British when they were busting up the Ottoman Empire after World War I, dividing the booty amongst themselves. That's one of the problems with the Mid-East. A lot of it's they're not natural nations. So I'm not willing to risk one drop of American blood for most of the nations in the Mid-East. I don't view them, and the people there don't view themselves as real nations. They didn't join the way Montana joined with the rest of the states here to form a country. Now, when you go to the Ukraine, yes, I am willing to have a shooting war with Russia. America didn't get here because we were afraid of a shooting war with Japan. We didn't get here because we were afraid of a couple of shooting wars with Germany, and I damn sure ain't afraid of Russia. That's mine.
Thank you, Mr. Painter. Thanks, Ed.
This is a question for Mr. Mason. Do you believe that the United States should be the moral leader of the world?
Obviously, this country is the greatest nation in the history of man. We should be an example to the world and a moral leader. I just don't want to give the world all our money. So we can be the moral leader. We should be. We don't want to give them everything that we have. I'd like to respond to the one question. You don't need to shoot down a plane. The problem is when liberals get in office, our enemies are on the march. Ever notice how when you put a good, strong Republican in, you don't have to do anything? Iran gave up the hostages as soon as they knew that Reagan was going to be elected. Putin's going to stop what he's doing as soon as he sees a strong Republican get in office. There won't be any more planes. There will be no more advancing on Ukraine. And China's going to stop doing what they're doing in the Pacific. So just get a good Republican, get a good, strong Republican in office, and America will start to lead again just by the strength. Trump says, if you build our military so strong, we'll never have to use it. Put a good Republican in office, and you never have to use the military at all.
Ms. Bringer?
Thank you. This question is from Mrs. Hooper. Would you support
Can we spread the
reducing...
questions around a little bit better? Is that possible? I feel like Ben Carson.
They know how I feel here.
This one's for Mrs. Hooper. Maybe the next one will be for you. Do you support reducing the amount of foreign aid to countries that are hostile toward the United States?
Absolutely. I believe that we need to apply our foreign aid where it does us good. I don't believe in charity just for charity's sake. I think one ought to give charity where it is a return to us as well as doing something for the other side.
Thank you. Ms. Bowers?
This is a question for Mr. Ficker. Incumbent Congressman John Delaney voted in support of the Iranian nuclear agreement, even though he criticized parts of it. What is your position on Iran's treaty?
Well, I would not have voted for that. I went to the meeting that he had in Potomac where, interestingly enough, and this is what really burned me up, he wouldn't take questions from the audience. He had this little program going on, and until we went on Twitter and started criticizing him about not taking questions, he wouldn't take any, and then he picked a few of his friends at the very end. He wouldn't allow filming of the meeting, and I believe in open, robust discussion of the issues. Here, we should have insisted on getting those hostages back. We shouldn't have paid them $150 billion. There should be immediate sanctions if they're testing weapons that can carry nuclear warheads like they are now. I'm very worried about Iran and what impact they may have on Israel, our friend and democratic buddy in the Middle East. I'm very disappointed in him. I'm disappointed in him because if you sit there, try to think, what has he done since he's been in Congress? I can't think of anything he's accomplished. At least we'll be able to say about Ficker after his first term, at least he got some money for that Trump Cruise 2 new lanes in I-270. At least the guy's done something. What has he done? He voted wrong on Iran. He's for allowing all these Syrian refugees in. He needs to go.
Thank you, Mr. Becker.
Thank you.
Mr. Ficker is an easier act to follow.
How would you intimidate our enemies, especially the ones that are fighting an unconventional war, the terrorists, from attacking us and our friends?
Require Congress to do what they haven't done in over 60 years. Declare a war on ISIS and radical Islam jihadists. And then we go to our NATO force allies, ones that I served in Afghanistan with, and require them to step up to the plate and actually hold their end of the bargain and carry the burden. We are done carrying the burden for the rest of the world.
Thank you. Ms. Angston?
I'd like to address this question to Mr. Howard. Do you believe the U.S. should engage in a spread democratic forms of government through nation building?
An interesting, loaded question. It's a fair question, though. I believe that we do have a responsibility as the light of the world when it comes to freedom and justice and the way to run a civilized nation, to export those ideals. However, we have seen the dangers of that time and time again. When we do the best, I believe our federal government does the best it can, but we miscalculate. And we send our military overseas, and our men and women die for causes that may prove downstream to not be what they were initially cracked up to be, and we get ourselves into a quagmire such as Iraq, Afghanistan, the list goes on and on. And I do believe that we have to pull back from our attempt to be the world's global policeman. But I do also believe that we need to, as I said earlier, we need to set budgets, and budgets like in a family with the government, a budget is something that the government says these are our national priorities. And a strong military in both asymmetrical and traditional warfare is something that I think we need. We need to improve our naval and air forces, our army, our Marines. However, how we deploy them, I think, needs to be rethought. We need a new national strategy for defending us, defeating our enemies, and keeping our country safe. How we deploy it.
Thank you, Mr. Howard. Ms. Krieger?
This question is for Dr. Chang. In regard to whatever you think is the greatest threat to our national security, what would you do to meet this challenge?
Okay, thank you. Well, national security is top priority. That is the most important for our life. It's most important. We have to take up American first. For the security, I would say, promote the national defense, increase intelligence service capability, and promote international cooperation, and destroy ISIS and the terrorists. Before they attack us, we need to destroy them. That's my answer. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Bauer?
Thank you. This is a question for Mr. Mason. Do you support the President's proposal to close the detention facility at Guantanamo Bay?
Absolutely not. The only reason he wants to do that is to bring the terrorists to America, allow them to have courts, allow them to have their day in court like we would as citizens, which they're not, so they can tell everybody how bad America is. We need Gitmo in order to put enemy combatants. We don't need them on our soil. We need them in Cuba. So I do not support the closing of Guantanamo Bay. It's just a political agenda, and we need to keep it, and we don't need to be giving people 5 for onesies. We get a traitor, and we give them 5 all-stars. So no, we need to keep it and keep them there, and we need to make it a place that's harsh. It's called Club Gitmo. It's better living there than half of us have in America. We need to make that a harsh place. We need to interrogate those people, and we need to make sure that they never do. They need to tell their friends what it's like so they never want to do the same acts that they've done again.
Thank you. Mr. King.
I have 2 questions on the same topic for Mr. Ficker because we have been shortchanged here. My pleasure. My brother was waterboarded as part of his survival training and Marine flight training. And I had dinner recently with somebody who's in the Army intelligence and said there's no question that terrorists are coming into the southern border. Would you let political correctness or any of this other candy-ass crap keep our country from being safe from terrorists?
You know, we had 58,000 Americans killed in the Vietnam War. During that time, I went to West Point, and it's not where you go if you're shy about protecting American security. And I just happened to choose a father-in-law who was a 3-star general in charge of logistics for the Vietnam War. Quite frankly, at West Point, we didn't learn about waterboarding, and we had military tactics. They didn't teach us that here. I think that we really need to be strong and somewhat quiet, but carry a big stick. We need to have a strong military that people will fear, that people will know will be there when they do something wrong, but we don't need to be the world's policeman. I don't want to torture the enemy. I think we need to put them in situations where they're going to give us information that can help save American lives. I'm very pro-security, pro-strong military. I think we need to keep everything fair, though, and that when we have a military adventure, a new military adventure, we need to be straightforward with the American people about how we're going to finance it, because I've seen what's happened to our country's deficit, our country's debt, because we didn't finance these adventures in the Middle East. We didn't present the case to the American people for financing those adventures, and now we're all paying the price. Our grandchildren are paying the price in interest payments.
That concludes our segment of question and answers. We now have 16 minutes for closing remarks. And we're going to go in reverse alphabetical order. So, Mr. Vogt, you get to lead.
Well, thank you everybody for being here tonight. It is an absolute great thing to see folks involved in the civic process. I began 31 years ago as son to a single mom. Shortly after I was born, her and my father split. And she worked 2 to 3 jobs to be able to keep us off of welfare for years. I grew up in my grandmother's church, who was a minister, learning what servitude meant and what that meant as far as being willing to wash somebody else's feet or give them the shirt off your back. That eventually led to my service in the Marine Corps, where I had a great 8 years, named Marine of the Year in 2010, not because of anything more than being privileged and having the honor to serve our great nation. That's what leadership is, someone who is willing to serve. And now have the wonderful privilege and honor to be able to serve in Annapolis and to be able to help fight every day for a future for my 2 boys that would not be if not for great men and women that have died so that we can be free. We've got to look forward to the future, away from the status quo, the person that thinks political correctness is the answer, or a government that thinks they invade our lives. We have to know what those problems are and get rid of them. Common Core has got to be ripped out of our education system. That is what's wrong with it. And it's got to be torn apart so that we can enable the teachers who are the heroes that create nations again. We've got to get Obamacare out of our health system so that we can provide a healthy future again, except let the private free enterprise do that across state lines. We've got to destroy a tax code that is breaking the backs of our small businesses and our middle-class Americans that are trying to survive and provide a better tomorrow. I've been on appropriations to help Governor Hogan create jobs and put fiscal restraint back in Maryland. And as your Marine, as your boots on the ground, and as of this week with the endorsement of Maryland Right to Life and their national pact in this race, I will be your congressman, and we will have a voice again.
Thank you, Mr. Vogt. Mr. Painter.
Basically, I want to bring jobs back to America, manufacturing jobs that enable the working man to return to the middle class where he's been expelled from. I want to cut down the size of the national government. I want to cut down the size of the national debt. I want to destroy the welfare state and have self-reliance and hard work prevail again in America. And I want to say to our allies, they have got to stand shoulder to shoulder with us and stop trying to get a free ride on America's defense budget.
Thank you. Mr. Mason.
I want to go to Congress because, as I said before, our greatest enemy, and I said in the first debate, our greatest enemy is not terrorism, it's not Russia, it's not China. Our greatest enemy is the Democrat Party. It is a war. It is the greatest war. And I said before in our first debate that Cicero pointed out very well that it would be better to face an army than the traitor within our ranks. In the halls of government, it infects the body politics. And if you send me there, I will go up there and I will knock out the traitors. Our country is on the ropes. We're one punch away from being taken out. Send me there and I'll fight back, not only save America, but to save your individual lives. We have seen that terrorism is on the rise in this country and many attacks. We are being killed off, one American after another. Send me there and I'll see that the right people are killed off. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Howard.
This is a critically important election for our country, our state, and the 6th District. I can beat John Delaney in November, and I ask for your vote in the upcoming primary. I have the energy, the passion, the character, the integrity, and the judgment to be a good representative for you in Congress. And most importantly, I have a plan. I'm not going to Congress to backslap and glad hand and go to parties. I have a plan. You've heard tonight that the three main areas for my focus in Congress will be getting the economy growing again, enhancing national security to keep us safe, and reforming Congress to get it to do its job, go bold, and do big things again. I am pro-life, a strong supporter of the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, including the Second Amendment. I signed a pledge to repeal Obamacare and believe the time has come for term limits for Congress. I invite you on April 18th to a fundraiser that former Governor Bob Ehrlich, who just wrote this book, it's his third and latest book, is doing for my campaign, and I'll close with a quote that he just gave me 2 days ago as he was getting on a plane to fly to Geneva, Switzerland. This is from Governor Bob Ehrlich. Keep your eye on Frank Howard and this closely watched congressional race. America is at a turning point. The name of his book is Turning Point. America is at a turning point in this election, and conservatives across America and in Western Maryland have everything to gain in 2016. More jobs, higher wages, and strong national security. We can undo the damage of the last several years if Republicans unite around our core principles and the right candidates. So I ask for your vote in the upcoming primary. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Howard. Mrs. Homer.
Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you for the opportunity to be here tonight. I learned a lot when I worked for President Reagan. I was his Deputy Undersecretary of the Army during both his administrations. We restored our national security posture. We restored our position in the world. We recreated the economy into a vibrant state, and we need to do this all over again today. Today, the United States faces a number of outside and inside challenges. There are challenges from North Korea. There are challenges from Russia. You all know that North Korea actually put a video on a week ago simulating a nuclear attack on Washington, D.C. If you don't know this, you ought to go look at it. We have problems with Iran that is already violating the agreement, and the Obama administration is sitting quietly by and doing nothing about it. We have problems all over the world that we need to address with seriousness, and I have the background and expertise of a lifetime in national security and to help make us safe. I have helped rebuild the military, I have helped rebuild our foreign posture, and I have helped the Reagan administration with its economy. When I get back into office here, I will attempt to do all of these things again. My key priorities will be, as I have said, national security, jobs for the 6th District, which I have already begun to help work on, and protecting our Second Amendment rights as one of the constitutional liberties we need to keep. I will be a leader in working for these priorities because I not only know how to serve, but based on my experience in the Pentagon, I know how to get things done. My name is Ami Hober, and I ask for your vote. I believe I can bring together the right coalition to beat Congressman Delaney. Thank you again.
Thank you, Ms. Hober.
In 2008, I put a question on the ballot, a charter amendment on the ballot that was opposed by every elected Democrat in Montgomery County to require a unanimous vote of the county council to increase property tax revenue more than the rate of inflation. I got it passed. And Bob Ehrlich complimented me and says, "That's amazing. How could anyone do this in a liberal county like Montgomery County?" I live right down the street on Barnesville Road. You don't need an absentee landlord in the congressional seat for the 6th District. Just like we have a county councilman who lives down by the Beltway that represents Poolsville, you need someone that you know, have known for years, and who is local. I estimate that passing that property tax limitation in 2008 has saved every homeowner in Poolsville at least $10,000 in taxes since that time. They're going to put a question, these tax increase specialists, they're going to put a question on the ballot this November to repeal that limitation so that they can hit you with a big tax increase each and every year, just like they're trying to do this year, 8%. You need me there to defend that limitation. You need me there to defend our term limits question that it's also going to be on the ballot, because we need some fresh ideas in Congress and in Montgomery County. I have a strong military background. I grew up with a father-in-law after I got married who was in charge of logistics for the U.S. Army. I have many West Point classmates. I went to 25 funerals by the time I was 25 years old. I know the impact of war, that war is hell, but I also know that we need to speak softly and carry a big stick. I look forward to your support, as I have had in Poolsville in 2014 in the primary and general election, and in 2010 in the primary and general election.
Thank you, Mr.
Vote the Trump Cruz Ficker ticket. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Dr. Chen.
Well, thank you everybody again. I'm Scott Chen. If I'm elected, I will secure national bond, protect the American people, destroy ISIS and the terrorists, reduce tax, cut imported tax, exempt American over 65 who keep working from federal tax, create jobs, improve economic growth, repeal Obamacare, reform healthcare system, boost agriculture product export, create more impunity, more fairness, protect Second Amendment, increase tax credit for parents paying for their children college education costs, lead zero balance of the national budget, vote for shale gas development in Western Maryland. I have best wish to get your vote. Please visit my website, votewisconsin.com. Thank you. I love America.
Thank you, Mr. Chen. Mr. Baker.
Thank you very much. If I'm fortunate enough to earn the voter support and respect, I will never, ever forget where I come from and who helped me earn the seat and the right to serve the citizens of the 6th District in Congress. I will seek out organizations such as organizations and communities such as yours here, and when casting votes, and that's going to be very, very important because many of the votes that I'll be making in Congress will have different effects in Western Maryland as opposed here in your community. So it's going to be important that I stay in tune, stay involved with the citizenry in the community when casting votes. I'm a third-term county commissioner in Washington County. I've been president the last two. The last two elections, I've received more votes than anyone ever in the history of running for county commissioner in Washington County. And in fact, last election, I was the top vote getter in almost every single precinct. And this did not happen by mistake. This happened because I do have the ability to be honest, to guide with integrity, to be trusted, and I have the ability to reach across those party lines. And for the candidate to win this seat, they're going to have the ability to attract and receive lots of Democratic votes. I've proven that I can do that in Washington County. I've never, ever had to compromise my conservative values, and the people in Washington County vote for me because I'm a man of integrity and I always try to do the right thing. Matter of fact, many times when I make a vote in Washington County, I'll go out into the community that the impact is going to have on the community that we're making the vote for, and I listen to the citizens. More often than not, I vote the way that the citizens ask me to vote. So I do listen to the citizens. Government belongs to you, the people, not me, the elected official. Also, in Washington County, our debt. Through this tough economic downturn, we are still operating on $2 million less revenue than we received back in 2010. Through all of the struggles that we've had with debt, we've been able to continue funding to our entities, and we've been upgraded to a AA+ bond rating. I'm very proud of that. Not always, but I always try to borrow less than we pay back, and that's how you're going to reduce the national debt. You have to borrow less than you pay back. Thank you, and again, I'd like to thank all the candidates and all the spectators and all the hosts for having us this evening. Thank you. And I had more votes in Washington County than Dan Bongino.
I'd like to thank our sponsors tonight, Legislative District 15, the Rural Women's Republican Club, the Potomac Women's Republican Club, and the Upper Montgomery Women's Republican Club. Thank you for your sponsorship. I also want to thank our panelists tonight, Jerry Cave, Julie Krieger, Sharon Bauer, and Ann Angstead. Terrific job. Thank you. Thanks for the right to work. Most importantly, I want to thank the candidates, because you are what the foundation of American democracy is all about. Thank you for your patriotism. Thank you for your sacrifice of working endless hours and endless nights trying to be elected. I wish you all good Godspeed and good fortune on Election Day. Thank you for being here.
Hey guys, can I test this without something? We have this sorry about that. I want to thank candidates. Normally on the table. Thanks so much. I'm not sure. Can I have your attention for a second, please?
We're going to hold up for just 1 minute. Let Dave get this out. He worked real hard on this event.
Thank you. Thank you, Jerry. I thank Jerry for introducing humor, Robin for his humor, and trying his best to follow the rules. I want to say that having listened to this evening, I've been to two different debates, and I am very proud to say that Montgomery County has 8 candidates, but it is hard to make a choice. They are all very passionate and very patriotic, and they are the foundation of this country. Thank you very much. Robin, Chris, Terry, Ani, Mike Howard,
Dave's trying to talk.
one more. My friend Neil Curry tells me you don't hear from me. Here's the straw poll. All right, first of all, let me see a show of hands of who thinks Trump won? Who thinks Cruz won? Who thinks Kasich won? That was pretty even. The results are, there were 60 votes, 25 for Cruz. I should have read them from the opposite direction. 16 for Kasich and 19 for Trump. The others.
There were
Others. Oh, there were two, I'm sorry, there were 2 write-ins, one for Ron Paul and one for Rand Paul.